called Matt Nightingale to come back, who did the very first episode with me. And we're going to talk about this incredible album that touched both of our lives in 1985. You know, there's a little theme going on today. I'm a little obsessed with this record and have been for, 30 years. So 35 years.
35, yeah.
35 years. But we will jump into the conversation in just a second. But Matt, welcome back.
Thank you. So fun to be here. I love this show and this format, and just it's really fun just to be a fan and be able to talk about my fandom, for these great artists and these great albums.
Well, I think for both you and I, the albums we've talked about specifically, we talked about other albums for other reasons all season, but the albums that we've talked about really shaped you and me. I think, I don't want to speak for you, but theologically and not just musically. Mm-hmm. And so that's, to me, what the real lasting power of art is. So I'm thrilled that we get to unpack this record and have a little nostalgia and a little fun, because this one is it's like I called it a talisman in my post, because this one has never ever left me. Mm-hmm. Since the day that I got it on May 15th, 1985.
I love that the day you got it.
Release date. And back then, release dates were, I don't know if your Christian bookstore was like this. So our Christian bookstore, and I should say, in case somebody's not looking at the screen, we are talking about Amy Grant's Unguarded, released in 1985. Release dates were loose. Mm. And so now, you can go right to your phone and that album's there on release date. Yes. Back then, we had to call. We knew it was coming out that month, but we didn't know what day. So I was the kid. Did the new Amy Grant record come in yet? Did it yet? Sometimes twice a day. Yet? Did it come in yet? And so I'll never forget calling on that particular day after school, and they said it was there. And I said, hold me a copy.
Yes.
And we got in the car when my mom got home from work and went down and bought it. And I really didn't know that it would change my life in the way that it did. And we'll get into all that as we go. How did you find this record?
Oh, man. You are bringing back so many memories just talking about the whole Christian bookstore and release dates, because I was that kid too. I would call, and I remember it was Bethel Bookstore in Concord Mall in Elkhart, Indiana. That's where I bought my albums, and I would buy records, of course, and I would faithfully save up the buy 4 get 1 free stickers, and oh my goodness, and those were the days. And I would call, yes, do you have the new whatever? And in fact, my first ever music purchase was Age to Age by Amy Grant. That was my first music purchase. I was probably 12 or 13 at the time. And I remember going to Bethel Bookstore, and I can just I can see that album cover. I remember putting it on my parents' turntable, and I didn't get the right side. I started it on side B, apparently. I'm trying to remember. This is all coming back.
To open the record.
Yes. So, but it was, and I just remember sitting there, and the waves of music just pouring over me and being so excited. And just I was the kid that devoured everything. Who's playing bass? What are the lyrics? Who wrote the song? Everything. Read the liner notes religiously. So Age to Age was my gateway into Amy Grant, and I was the kid, listening to WFRN Christian radio every day going to school with my mom, and I wish I could remember the first Amy Grant song that I heard. It might be Faith Walking People. Remember that song?
Can't rely on everything they...
Da-na-na-na. Yep. So Faith Walking People, to me, I think it was on this is crazy, a compilation album that I saw on TV. And I
Wow.
remember my parents bought that compilation album. I sure wish I could remember what it was, but it had Faith Walking People by Amy Grant. So that might be the first song of hers that I heard.
Okay.
And then I bought Age to Age, and then I was hooked. And so everything that she released, I immediately bought and consumed lots of times. So yeah, Unguarded was really special. And I remember too the excitement around the 4 different album covers,
Yes.
right?
Oh yes. Get
So
ready.
which was yours? Which did you
Ready.
is that your original one?
No.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, let me-
Oh, you've got them all.
This was my favorite, but it was not the one I got.
Yeah,
This is the one that I got.
that's the one I got also. Yes.
But this
Oh,
is always my favorite. Which is
yeah, that's a
why I
pretty cool one.
love the reissue because guess what?
All 4.
They're all there.
Yes.
Yeah, the 4 covers. That was so like groundbreaking
Yeah, it was
for
really
Christian
cool.
music at the time.
But I do remember bringing that record home and just the opening of that octave synthesizer. It was so driving, and it was really exciting and compelling for me when I put that needle on the vinyl and heard those opening notes.
I remember running to the volume button to turn it down. I knew that if my grandparents heard that loudly, I would never get to hear that record again because I knew that that was going to be devil's music. And so I went, oh, I have to play this one really low and be really covert with this one because it got more and more dangerous as it went on.
For sure. Yeah, I was lucky that my parents, as long as it was Christian music, I could listen to it. There were a couple of times when I remember, it's actually a sweet memory. My dad and I driving in the car, and he just very like lovingly but curiously was like, are you sure about this music? And I think it was Petra. And he just was like, it's such rock and roll. Like, I just don't know, Matt. I don't know. And so that's kind of a sweet memory for me because he was still open and he wanted to learn. And he was like, are you sure that this is okay? And how do you know? And so we had a good conversation about that. But for me, anyway, as long as it was Christian music, I could have it in the house. I could listen to it openly. And in fact, my mom and dad usually liked it and would listen along as long as it didn't get too crazy. Amy Grant was still okay. And they actually enjoyed it along with me. So that was cool.
Well, and I want to also, we have to set a little bit of context before we get into the record because 1985 really, to me, it is the greatest year of contemporary Christian music because it was not that Doug, it was the one year I feel like there was a year and a half window where people were really not so concerned with being dogmatic. And not everybody. There were some really dogmatic songs, so don't get me wrong. But there was a handful of artists, or were a handful of artists, that went, yeah, I got to get out into the rest of the world. And I'm not so concerned with getting booked at all these churches. I really care a little bit less about Christian radio jumping behind me. I want to get out there and do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so the music to me as a really rigid kid, I mean, they were trying to get me to constantly listen to Jimmy Swaggart and, love that. And I went, it's not really my thing. And I don't really get it. And so I felt really just repressed by what was happening. And then you get that year and the year before we got Leslie Phillips, Dancing with Danger.
Yeah.
Milo
what?
Never, Sheep in Wolf's Clothing.
What year was Dancing with Danger?
84.
84. Oh my gosh.
84.
Okay.
It was like that cusp, but it was all of these. And now years later, we learn as we're adults and we look into this, those were mainstream rock, largely session players.
Yeah, right.
Shaping the sounds of those records, which is why to us they sounded not that different from like a Virgin or Tears for Fears or, Journey.
So Leslie Phillips, Mylon Lefevre. I have to say that Dancing with Danger album was another. I just have this very clear memory of putting the needle on the vinyl and hearing that thunderous drum beat, boom, ba-doom, 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 you know, and just going like, like really having like a thrill. Like I was thrilled with that. It was so exciting. And then she had that, you know, raspy, strong, race with a Bible in your hand. That was the first
Right.
line. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And I look back on that song even in particular now, and I just kind of crack up at it, frankly, the words and everything. But at the time, it felt dangerous. It felt exciting. It felt like groundbreaking, you know. So that was a really powerful moment for me too.
That's really the word though that describes those records. It was they
Mm,
were groundbreaking.
mm-hmm.
And so, I was looking today at the top 40 from the Music Line magazine, from
Oh my gosh.
one of the charts from 1985. And so
Mm.
you've got in the top 10, the Christian "We Are the World," "Do Something Now."
Yes,
Got
yes.
"Find a Way" at number 2 at that point. Russ Taff, "Silent Love," Mylon
Mm,
Lefevre, "The Warrior," Dion DiMucci,
yes.
"Still in the Spirit," White Heart,
Wow.
David Martin, The Imperials, Sheila Walsh. Like that's
Mm,
the top 10.
wow.
And that really is, um, to me, really representative of what 84, 85, 86.
Mm. What was
Really,
the Sheila Walsh song?
Jesus Call Your Lambs by
Oh
Terry.
wow, by Terry DeSario. Yep.
Yeah. Um, and so you had, just really crisp, fresh music. And then, in the midst of that, here comes Unguarded,
Mm.
which, I think the prior albums, Amy's prior album, Straight Ahead, was a very, for Christian music, very edgy.
Yeah.
There were some really controversial moments on that. If you remember, like Open Arms, people were saying, like, who is she talking about? Talking about Jesus.
Hmm.
And, and Amy was starting to really tell us, I think, where she was starting to move, that she
Mm.
wanted to write music that was a little more viable. She sold out Radio City Music Hall,
Mm.
I think in 84.
It's
And
Not a Song was on that album, right?
that's right.
Yeah, which was not overtly Christian,
Well,
I
and in
think.
fact, Richard Page from Mr. Mister
Mm.
did backgrounds on that.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
And so, she was like dipping her toe in the water. And I found this today and I wanted to share this because this is so Amy. This is so there was a interview, not a review, in Music Line a month before Unguarded came out. And so she's starting to lay the groundwork for this new, more vulnerable kind of song that she's writing, because she wants to reach her age group, her
Hmm.
demographic. She was 24 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so she makes a correlation. She's rendering this example about being willing to sing different kinds of songs to be able to reach a larger span of people. So I'm tickled because she uses Purple Rain, the movie Purple Rain, to give this spiritual lesson for Christian radio announcers who read this magazine, Christian retailers. So she's talking about how Prince didn't want to sing, his character in Purple Rain did not want to sing music by other people because he didn't feel like it was true to his vision.
Mm.
She's so clever. And so she says, when all along the song that would reach a wide span of people was they were trying to hand it to him through the whole movie. She's talking about Wendy and Lisa trying
Hmm.
to give him this demo of Purple Rain. So she says at the end of the movie, they all get on stage and he starts playing their music and the girls in the band are flipping out because this is their song. He starts playing Purple Rain, which is just a killer. And at the end, his admonition was, look, we need each other.
Mm.
It's not good if it's only good for me.
Mm.
It's like sex. It's no good if it's only good for you. That's the big joke. Oh, was it good for you too? It's true. Anything that's vulnerable and shared, be it sexual or whatever, it's got to be good for both parties or it loses its value. Amy Grant, April 1985.
Okay, that is pretty bold of this lady who is the darling of Christian music to be
Yeah.
talking about sex and Prince, right?
in a Christian music magazine.
Wow.
And so that to me, when I was going, I was getting ready for our conversation today, and I said, let me go back and read her interviews from that
Mm,
year that I have. And
mhm,
that just blew my mind because I went, that is Amy, because it's um, not intentionally provocative, but she is always, particularly that time, she was always provocative, just by she could find the spiritual lesson, and continues to, I think, when we see these, the interviews she does and the things she chooses to talk about.
mm.
She's trying to make the world at large accessible and viable, um, to the world that she works in, which is largely the Christian music world, but she's also in turn trying to make herself accessible to the world as a person of faith.
And like you kind of blew my mind when you said she was 24. I had not really thought about how old Amy Grant was when
Yes.
Unguarded came out. 24. I have a son who's 25. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, that's kind of amazing thinking that she was so young
Yeah.
and so articulate and so in control of kind of where she was taking this career musically,
Yes.
you know?
Well, and I was also reading yesterday in the reissue. There's a wonderful note from her manager at the time, one half of Blanton and Harrell,
Mm,
who talks about the inspiration for who they wanted to reach with Unguarded and the sound they wanted, being inspired by seeing the movie Footloose,
mm,
which I find completely fascinating as
yeah.
well, because that was a really controversial film within the Christian community because of
Hmm.
how it portrayed um, Christians.
Mm.
And so I found that just fascinating.
Well, interestingly, I've never seen Footloose because, of course, I was not allowed to watch it back in the day, and I just have never made time. But I think it's one of those things that would probably be interesting and possibly even like healing
Oh,
and healthy for me to go back and
totally.
watch it.
You
Yeah,
must.
yeah.
You must. And so, in this movie, it's about, a little small town being driven by ultimately a fundamentalist preacher
Hmm.
who convinces all the town people and the parents of young people that dancing is of the devil, and trying to really restrain these young people. And so the conversation that Amy's manager, alludes to in the liner notes is that the conversation was, let's make some music the kids can dance to.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you hear Unguarded, it is buoyant and joyful, but
Hmm.
also completely thoughtful. It is
Yeah.
not um, empty
Mm-mm.
dance music by any capacity. And so, what were your favorite songs, or what was one of your favorite songs?
Well, I listened to it right before I got on this call, and I listened to it last night and a couple nights ago as well. And frankly, I hadn't listened to it in quite a long time, so it was really fun and interesting to kind of go back and remember. And I mean, there's so many things to love about this album. I mean, Find a Way, I remember being captivated by and so excited because it was like one of our own like breaking through. And I was like pretty excited about and aware of like chart positions and here's a CCM artist who's like making, having a hit on pop radio. And I mean that, I think about the day that I heard Baby Baby on the radio in whatever 89 or 90, whenever that happened. And I remember that same feeling of just being so proud and excited because it was like she's one of us and she's out there finding this kind of success.
Yeah.
And I also have been thinking about Find a Way, how like controversial it was in some circles of Christianity because it was kind of like this breakout thing. She's got this leopard skin jacket and it's kind of like worldly. And that song, listening to it now, it's so clearly like overtly evangelical, even in its words, when it says, "If our God, his son not sparing, came to rescue you, is there any circumstance he can't see you through?" That is boldly, blatantly evangelical,
What more do you need?
Yeah. And to think that that would be considered somehow, I don't know, unfaithful or worldly just kind of boggles my mind. You know what I mean?
Well, this is also, and this is also a can we just call it a syndrome? That the church at large has had, since the very beginning. And so, when you trace back, original crossovers, Sister Rosetta Tharpe,
Right.
the Edwin Hawkins singers. I mean, the music was never not blatantly Christian or
Right.
gospel.
Right.
I think the real lie, I'm not really using soft language today. The real lie is that many, we'll say many, not making big generalizations, many in the Christian hierarchy really don't want the message shared with the world at large. They want people to come to them.
Yeah,
And
on their terms.
yeah, it is about the music and the message being presented outside of their control. And so I have a whole theory about why the Christian crossover experiment was so short-lived. That's another talk, and that's another day. But when I look at this era, what I see are some fearless artists that said, yeah, it wasn't just about going into the world. I think on some other level, my opinion, it was about, we got to get out from under this control.
Yeah.
And Amy really is the only one that successfully did that to this day.
So, yeah, I was thinking I mean, they're all great. Love of Another Kind. I think I'll never forget that moment of, that compelling synth opener. I just love it. I think as I listened to it again, I was reminded of the incredible vocals on this album, the great vocal arrangements. I loved Wise Up. I love that big a cappella ending. Is there who sang? Who were the singers on Wise Up?
Well,
I'm sure you
singers
know.
are Tommy Thunderberg and Bill Champlin, the baddest, one of the baddest. Did I say bad? I mean,
I think you did.
Bill Champlin is amazing. If you go back to Donna Summer's The Wanderer, he's all over that record as well. Bill Champlin, the Sons of Champlin was his band in the 70s. He still performs to this day.
Okay.
He and Tommy Thunderberg, of course, later that year released an album with Bob Wilson called The Front.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that.
I don't.
They were another sort of crossover-ish group. And then I think a year later they became What If and made a great record on A&M, I think.
Okay.
Don't quote me.
Yeah.
Tommy Thunderberg, Bill Champlin are the voices on Wise Up.
Okay.
The voice my ear hears the most on Love of Another Kind is Gary Chapman.
Yes.
Singing his butt off on those background.
Yes. And I noticed his voice a lot too as I listened through it the last couple nights. Yeah. And I Love You. I can't help but think of Amy and Gary and that love relationship and their story. Yeah.
And that's also Richard Page from Mr. Mister on the background. Love You.
Okay.
And of course, we've got on Who to Listen to Donna McElroy and Kim Fleming.
Yep.
With Gary, Diana Hanna, Gary Pig, and Chris Harris. But I'm always going to have my ear for Donna and Kim.
Yes, of course.
I'm mad there for more of this record.
Stepping in Your Shoes was always a favorite of mine for the vocals. There'll never be anyone. It's just lovely. And the breakdowns and the harmonies.
Well,
that amazing solo.
Chris Eaton.
Yeah.
Chris Eaton, who wrote that with Amy and then also is singing all of the harmonies on that.
Yeah.
Chris Eaton is unsung. If you haven't heard his Vision record,
I have, yeah.
Anybody that's listening, you can stream it. You must hear Vision. Chris Eaton is a brilliant soul.
I think he toured with Michael W. Smith too, didn't he?
He did.
Was he in Michael W. Smith's band when that live album came out and all that? I remember him on Nothing But the Blood of Jesus. I think he sang, I believe, had a solo line in that.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what stands out when I think about Chris. Okay,
Well,
one more funny story about the album. Sharia is a favorite, of course. I mean, it's just buoyant, and that's just it's so happy. And I remember as this is just weird. I remember this funny memory. I had the album and I was listening to it for the first time, and I it's a strange word, Sharia. I didn't know how to pronounce it. Sharia. I didn't know, and I was kind of waiting for the first time she would say the word in the song. I'm reading the lyrics and I see it's coming up to the chorus, right? And right before, I wish I could remember the word, right before the first chorus, but she has a little bit of a vocalization afterwards, like, da-na, yeah, or something like that. And then the yeah, I thought, oh, did she say it right there? I thought that was how to pronounce it. And then a beat later comes Sharia. I mean, just plain as day, so clear, obviously. But I remember that little vocalization, whatever she said, going like, oh, was that it? And then a minute later, of course, the word Sharia comes in. But that's just a funny, quirky memory of mine, like wondering, whoa, that's an interesting word. What's that going to sound like when she sings it?
right. Well,
Yeah.
and my friend Dusty Wells and his wife named their daughter Sharia.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So this is impactful on many people's lives.
Yes.
Um, we should also talk about, I think, the response to this album once it
Mm.
was out in the world.
Hmm.
Um, and so I went back and dug out some of the Christian reviews of this album, and Music Line and CCM were both, of course, praising of the production standards.
Yeah.
Given half a chance, Unguarded will make a significant impact in the mainstream market and expose contemporary Christian music to a whole new audience. For those who say she's selling out, it's a matter of direction.
Mm.
Are we in this business to stroke the body or take the message to a dying world? With Unguarded, Amy Grant takes the message where it's needed most.
Mm.
And, you know, people felt really strongly about this. So I have a memory, and maybe you have this memory too, because you also stocked Contemporary Christian Music magazine.
Yes.
Do you remember the viewer letters? The number of viewer letters that came in, and they would print them.
Yeah, I remember reading those every month. I can't wait for this.
So I pulled a few because I went through all of the 1985 issues, because these are just really quite something to read, especially now. I was 10 at the time, and I just went, people are so mean.
And it's interesting. I mean, avid reader of CCM, but I didn't start subscribing until 1987. The first one that I received had DeGarmo and Key on the front. He's biting the synthesizer, I believe.
Yes.
So that was my first CCM ever. And then I subscribed all the way up, I mean, into the 2000s. I don't remember when my last one was, but yeah, and I don't have them anymore, sadly. Breaks my heart. But yeah, I'm so fascinated to hear these letters.
So there were quite a few. People were really upset because the review, first of all, oddly compared her to Cyndi Lauper, which I didn't really understand at all. They were like, dude, both Christian reviews I read compared it to
really?
Cyndi Lauper, and I just went,
no. I mean, maybe the synthesizer, I can imagine like the sound of Girls Just Want to Have Fun, the kind of like synthesizer, swirly, danceable, maybe that, but her voice is nothing like Cyndi Lauper's.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So Samuel Graves from Versailles, Ohio, wrote in, and he said, I won't read it in my voice. I won't do it. I've been an Amy Grant fan for quite some time. The messages which she shares in her songs have made a major impact in my life. However, in regards to the review by Bob Darden, Amy's mainstream message, Amy has sold out. What a disappointment. The reference to Amy sounding more like Cyndi Lauper than Jamie Owens Collins. Quite true. But what happened to the Christian message? I can honestly say that Unguarded is contemporary, but it's not Christian. All I hear is Marguerite Perrin from Trading Spouses. It's dark-sided.
Oh, yes.
Even the cover gives it that pop rock seductive look. It was noted that the album was produced on the Myrrh record label. However, my cassette is marked A&M. Is this another sellout? I must say the album is very good, but it's as close to contemporary Christian as Denise Williams' Let's Hear It for the Boy.
Wow.
So two things are really funny to me because I've always considered Let's Hear It for the Boy a CCM record. Because when I hear that record, I hear also because I've also considered Donna Summer's The Wanderer a CCM record.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put all these albums together because I'm like, it's inspirational music.
Yeah. I mean, when I hear Let's Hear for the Boy, I hear So Glad I Know, So Glad I Know. It's
Yeah,
the
she
same.
closed that album with "Cleanse Me" and "I Will Be Whiter Than Snow."
Yeah.
And what more do you need?
Yeah.
So, but this was the kind of vehemence, and there were many. I will say, I don't want to just point out the really mean letters, but there were
Yeah.
of course supportive letters. This one really tickled me, and I have to share this because it may be the only feminist moment that CCM ever had in print. So this is a letter from Patty Moore in Denver, Colorado. Patty Moore, I want to know you. I want to know where you are today. I
Come
hope,
on, Patty. Come on, Patty.
yeah, come on, Patty. I personally choose to believe that God has no gender.
Hmm.
If you've had a revelation to convince you that God is a he, please enlighten me. Yes, I realize that some people choose masculine terms to represent both genders, but I don't agree with that oppressive use of the English language. I love her. God is
Patty.
just God. It isn't necessary to attach a masculine pronoun to the title. Please cancel my subscription.
Whoa.
So that's not about Unguarded, but I had to share that. Great.
Incredible. Thank you, Patty.
So there were also just some really great responses from readers.
Hmm.
Rational, again from Columbus, Ohio, where Reyes was born and raised. Mark Sisson, this is great. How can one arrive at the fact that after listening to Unguarded, Amy Grant has sold out? My own feelings were very much to the contrary. It seems to me that her music has reached a new depth of spiritual maturity. I'm not saying to put it on the shelf next to Calvin's Institutes, but what I'm saying is that Unguarded is a relevant piece of work that God can use and one that does a nice job of speaking forth the truth. On top of that, I found the Rolling Stone article encouraging for the most part and read with disgust your article, which expressed the negative reaction to it. I found little in the Rolling Stone piece that I felt should be legitimate cause for a brother or sister to stumble. For some, the problem isn't so much one of stumbling as it is caused by their own clumsiness.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So I don't
good.
know where these really bright people are that were writing in with these wonderful statements, because I hope they're saying great things today.
I know. It is funny, when I think about this criticism that somehow she was selling out or was not truly Christian, I just can't. It's hard for me to even see that at all. I mean, I think of Everywhere I Go as literally like it's a paraphrase of Psalm 139. She's saying, everywhere I go, there you are. I see you everywhere. This is such a deeply Christian album. There's just, I don't see it. The Prodigal. Are you kidding me? It's a modern retelling of one of Jesus's most famous parables. These are just, it's deeply Christian.
Well, and you raised something really important, and the last letter I'm going to share actually references what you just said. I confess, for weeks I couldn't discern what qualifies Amy Grant's Unguarded LP as not Christian. However, praise the Lord, I've seen the light. How could I have missed those satanically inspired messages of God's love and omnipotence, our need to avoid compromise, and the sincere desire to live the way God wants us to? How could I have failed to notice the crassly commercial way she plastered those Bible verses on the lyric sheet? How could I have overlooked the seductive way she bared her face and forearms on the cover? Worst of all, how could I have failed to see the mobs of heathens hearing her song Find a Way on secular radio and then, God forbid, actually buying her album in secular music stores? That's the real clincher. Sinners wouldn't buy a Christian album. Amen. I love your magazine. God bless you. Keep up the good work. Favorite letter. That is Kevin Shankin in Petersburg, Michigan. Kevin
Thank you,
Shankin,
Kevin.
where are you?
Well, we need to stalk these people on Facebook, I think.
Totally. We need to look them up.
Yes.
So we also share, and I want to get this in, we also share the
Oh,
experience of the Unguarded tour.
yes, we do.
Tell me about your.
Well, it was in South Bend, Indiana, at the Notre Dame. I don't remember. It's the Notre Dame University Performing Arts Center. I saw many concerts there, and I think they called it the Notre Dame ACC. I don't know what the ACC stands for. Oddly, and I know you shared this same experience. The opening act was Bob Bennett, which is maybe. I mean, I've seen a lot of strange pairings in my concert going over the years, but Amy Grant, this leopard skin wearing, hot pop
Full band,
crossover, amazing band. Like, I mean, just
light
like
show.
everything. Yes. And then to have Bob Bennett open the show by standing in my show anyway, in front of the curtain, right? So the curtain is like closed around the whole beautiful, amazing set. Bob is just out in front with his acoustic guitar. There's no band. There's no nothing, no lights, just maybe like a spotlight on him. Poor guy. Bob Bennett was never famous for his sex appeal or like, that wasn't his thing. and so here's this, maybe, yeah, I don't know. Just, I don't know who they thought they were appealing to with Bob Bennett. Now, I could appreciate Bob Bennett at the time, although I was really ready for him to get out of the way so we could see Amy. And I think everyone there was feeling the same thing. I just feel, looking back on it with much greater appreciation for Bob Bennett now, like I really, really love a lot of his music. But I just think, wow, who put that together? What creative genius thought, or label person thought that this is a good pairing? It's just bizarre for me to think about.
My memory is of hearing, I was 10. So, the fact that this stood out to me at 10 really what a weird child I was. But I remember sitting there and two things really bothered me. I remember the people in front of me eating hot dogs and talking while he was singing.
I feel like the lights didn't even go down.
No,
I feel like the lights were still up in the house. People were
yes,
coming in.
they were
Okay.
mulling around. People
Yeah.
were mulling around, and I remember the whir, the like funnel of
Oh.
sound
Ah.
of people talking,
Mm-hmm.
and I just went. Now I look at it and I go, "Oh, I would have been livid if I were."
Yeah. Yes.
Because Bob Bennett, and I want to say, Bob Bennett is a James Taylor-esque
Yep.
singer-songwriter. He
Yep.
is brilliant. And that record,
Yes.
Nonfiction, he put out that year was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And that touring opportunity did absolutely nothing for him, from what I can see, especially when I look at the rest of that tour. And I know that there were dates with Leon Patillo, there were dates with Russ Taff.
Oh my gosh.
That made so much more sense.
Yeah.
And so, I felt bad for Bob, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Yes, we share that.
Yes. Truthfully, I don't remember a whole lot more about it except, and I don't know why, like it seems like that should be in my memory, but I remember just the kind of well, for its time, choreography. I mean, I don't think there was lots of, dancing, but there was some, right? And movement and choreographed movement with the backup singers. I'm pretty sure Donna and Kim were on that tour. And I think Gary was there. So good. I was like just in awe. I don't think my mom and dad came with me. I think I went with some youth group friends. And so I was also feeling this like independence. I was in South Bend with me and my friends at this rock show, and it was just overwhelming. I mean, I was screaming, I was singing along, I was such a fan. And it was just, she was at that point in my life, the biggest star that I had ever seen
Totally.
in person, And so I was just over the moon.
It was my first concert not in a church.
Oh, wow.
I saw Sandy Patty in a hotel in like 83.
Okay.
But beyond that, I had not seen a concert outside of a very formalized church setting. And so going to the concert, I remember walking up, and yes, we had protesters at the Amy Grant because we were in Tampa, Florida at the USF Sundome, and Christians were not playing with Amy Grant and whatever she thought she was doing. So we had protesters.
Wow.
And I remember the people in front of us walking in. I'll never forget. I felt so cool because I was this little, you know, sheltered child. And I remember hearing them talk about Wham.
Mm.
And then the people in front of me were eating hot dogs while Bob Bennett was singing,
Hmm.
had one of them had a Tears for Fears shirt on. And I went, oh, I'm with the cool people. I'm with the cool
Yes.
people right now. I'm 10 and you can't tell me anything. We paid $15 for my ticket. They were $15 each, which was, my mother was just bothered by
Yeah.
how much money these tickets were. And so I'm always grateful that she spent that, $45 for me, her, and my godmother Valerie to go.
Wow.
But my memory of the music is how I'd never heard anything that loud
Mm, yeah.
in my
Yeah.
life. It took like 3 days for my ears to bounce back.
Hmm.
And so that was really like jolting because I felt the music in my entire body.
Yes. Yes.
And that was like sensory overload in the best possible way. And then Amy was wonderful. So when I say this, I'm not diminishing because it was a fabulous show.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop listening to Donna McElroy, Kim Fleming, and Renee Garcia on
Hmm.
those background vocals. That was like, I get a little teary. I mean, they
Yes.
were just with Gary Chapman singing harmonies as well.
Yes.
With
Yes.
that pairing is unlike anything else that I had ever heard up to that point. I mean, that was
Mm.
just an unbelievable. And then they did a set together. I don't know if they,
Yes. I
yes,
remember that. Yes. And I didn't really know who they were at the time, you know? So, I mean, I had heard their names, I'd seen them in the liner notes, but man, I do remember that and being just like in awe, just in
gobsmacked,
awe of it. Hmm.
gobsmacked. And by the way,
Yep.
Donna McElroy will be on the show in season 2,
Woohoo!
talking about her bigger world record.
So
Um,
cool.
but I also wanted to pull, uh, and all that to say that on this, there are, just my only disappointment with this is that the live tracks did not come from the Unguarded tour.
Uh,
And that just, but what's wonderful about it is that Chris Eaton is playing in the band. So I think they're from the
mm,
Lead Me On tour. They didn't give us a date.
okay.
But what I experienced on that Unguarded tour, I wish people could hear. I wish we could see it and hear it because that was unlike, and I've seen Amy several times since then.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever compare to the Unguarded tour for me.
Mm-hmm.
The energy was just, I mean, 10,000 people. We had never seen, the Tampa Bay area had never seen a contemporary Christian concert like that before. It got a full
Yeah.
page review in the St. Petersburg Times that I
Mm,
still have. I meant to bring it
mm,
down, but just, it was historic.
yeah.
And to hear it and see it was really life-changing for me because Amy made my world bigger.
Mm, for sure. Yes. I love that. I love that line and I agree with it for myself too. Yep.
Um, she talked about in an interview a year later, she talked about her memory of Unguarded. They did a wonderful cover story with her and CCM in '86. It was a career retrospective. Um, and this was a huge interview because they had not done anything on her through the Unguarded era
Mm,
that year. And so they had her talk about each of her albums. It's such a great feature. And she talked about her memory of Unguarded being about hearing Find a Way on secular radio for the first
mm,
time. And she said that was probably one of my neatest memories from that year. The funny thing about that little incident is that nobody cared. The things that are so important to you, they don't even stop the clock for anybody else.
mm,
But it doesn't matter.
mm,
And so I think that that's also what makes her music so spectacular. Amy's
yeah.
writing, period, even beyond this record,
Mm,
is that she remains so intensely human
mm-hmm.
and attentive to those small moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the fact that that song was playing on some radio station in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Denver, Colorado, or wherever, whatever she said, it was a small town,
Yeah.
meant something.
Mm-hmm.
And so wherever we are in our lives, I think that's the songwriter's gift, is
Mm,
to always be looking for those small moments, because we all have them.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
to create from that really is a gift.
Hmm.
I think because a lot of people are just trying to write um, deep songs, or, really big theological statements. And Amy's gift really is all about um, finding what is special.
Yeah. And there's a she has obviously a sophistication to her craft, but I have always found her to be so relatable and so um, there's a simplicity also
Yeah.
to the way she tells a story, the way she writes, that is really appealing and kind of winsome, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm grateful. I can't believe almost an hour has gone by. And we really, I hope we have done this album a little bit of justice. I want to encourage people to support this reissue, because
Yeah.
particularly if you are a CCM lover, please support this, because these labels, I'm just going to say this, I mean, they have albums sitting on the shelves that
Mm,
they don't believe people want.
hmm.
Um, and when you support a project like this that is 35 years old, and it's rare we get these. And
Hmm.
so to get a wonderful reissue and a wonderful package, beautiful package, it's a gatefold. Amy does an entire side that's commentary about the making of this record. And you get these live tracks and a beautifully remastered album. And,
Mm,
take a listen and really pay attention to why being remastered 35 years later makes a difference. Go,
yeah.
if you get this, play it, and then play your original one, and you'll hear
Mm,
the difference.
hmm.
And how we take in music matters. I'm preaching a lot today, but
It's good.
please support this. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it anywhere music is sold online. I know we're still, doing our best to not just run wild in the streets. Um, but support this project, and, um, you know, find a way to, post publicly about it, and let your friends know about this music that I promise, if you haven't heard it, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it'll make a difference in your life. Love really will find a way,
Hmm.
won't it, Matt?
It sure will. It's good
One more
stuff,
little
Tim.
nostalgic note. Do you remember these?
I think so. I mean, that looks familiar to me. I want to read. Is it?
The Take 'Em With You ad campaign?
Yes.
Do you remember this? And they were little compilation tapes.
Yes.
Do
Yes.
you remember this? Is it coming
Yes.
back?
I mean, like I haven't thought of this in decades, so I'm going like that looks really familiar to me. What was that? Talk to me about this again. It was compilations. So
Compilations.
that's
So they were trying to sell Walkmans, which were just, coming into
yes,
consciousness for us.
yes.
As you can see there, I'm gonna move it in. So the little, the little Walkman. They had a partnership with Sony, and I'm trying to remember what the deal was. No big deal. Word and Sony have this contest happening where you can win a Sony Walkman absolutely free. That's what it was.
Okay.
Visit a participating Christian record store and look for the top 20 plus cassette display. Or the store should have some take them with you entry forms. That's right. Now it's all coming back to me. I didn't know
Okay.
the details. So yeah, so you would buy the compilation tape. It was like $5.98,
Okay.
and then you could fill out a form to possibly win a Walkman. But these compilation tapes were so great. I've got mine. I've got to convert them. Because they were just brilliantly sequenced.
Mm,
Even if I had all the records, I
hmm.
loved that I
Yeah.
could listen to these 10 songs together. And they did 6 of them. I mean, it was just brilliant. But the ad campaign was so brilliant. And we'll be talking about Russ Taff's Medals next season too.
Ah,
So we'll show
great
that.
record. Yeah.
These were just, this was the funnest era. It was the
Yeah.
funnest era. I miss it
I do too.
every day.
But you're living it today with that jacket and t-shirt, concert t-shirt. I love it. I love
Matt,
it.
tell people where they can find you on social media. Um,
You can always find me at Matt Nightingale, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Would love to connect with anybody. Or my website, mattnightingale.com.
right. Matt does really incredible work, ultimately helping people get free
Mm.
every day. And I'm so grateful that you're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want to see, and it is really fulfilling, and I'm really grateful for it. Yeah.
How can people, Matt is also a co-pastor of the Quest. Tell people how they can watch your services since we're all staying home right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we haven't been live in our building since March, but we are available on YouTube and on Facebook Live. We are Quest Novato. Novato is Novato. Quest Novato on YouTube or on Facebook Live. And we're live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we welcome you. Come and participate in one of our worship services. We are a progressive, LGBTQ inclusive community of faith. Black Lives Matter. All genders are called and gifted to teach and preach and lead. So yeah, come and support a progressive kind of faith community because we're really excited about that and love to welcome everyone to the table.
Thank you for saying that, Matt, because I think it's really important as well before, as we're closing, to connect the work that you're doing to what this music gave us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. The heart in me at 14 or 13 years old that so wanted the world to know this Jesus that Amy was singing about, that heart is still in me at almost 50 years old. And I want people to know that they can connect, even if you're gay, even if you're whatever, you can connect with this Spirit of God, who I believe we encountered in that music in 1985, and I believe we can still encounter today. So yeah, I absolutely love that, and I think it is connected. Absolutely, those songs, those albums formed me. They were part of the formation of who I am today.
holding on to this music for me has been my resistance. Because I think we might have touched on this in our talk about Terry, but
Yeah.
I think for me it was important too because I knew the God they talked about. I knew that God. I didn't know
Yeah.
the God they started talking about again in like 87, 88, 89. I didn't know that one. But
Yeah.
in 85, 86, I understood that God that wanted to be in the world with the world, touching
Yeah.
people and loving people where
Yeah.
they were and not asking all these questions.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's really important. And I do think it's one of the reasons this music has a hard time surviving today. The old music has a hard time seeing the light of day. And I really do believe that's why. I do think there is conscious or unconscious some effort to repress the messaging because
Yeah.
what has happened is that the music has become very exclusive
Yeah.
and not as inclusive. And so I really urge people to go and, maybe even in the comments, I'll post some albums that are available for streaming that I think really express the God that Matt and I know.
That's right. That's good stuff.
Thank you, Matt. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for you coming to spend time with me and have a little Diet Coke and
It's so fun. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I just love the music, and I love getting to know you over the years. And so this is just a really like a fun conversation with a friend about some great music. So thank you.
everybody. We will be back in January. We will be on hiatus through the holidays. Some things are going to be changing a little bit about the formatting in season 2, but they're all exciting things. We've got great people lined up. So we'll be back. There will be a radio component, so you'll be able to actually listen to some of the songs, particularly on these albums, some of them that aren't available anymore. So we'll be able to
Yeah.
still make the music heard in a larger way, and I'm excited about that.
It's awesome.
So happy holidays to everyone. Enjoy your time. Please continue to be safe. Wear your masks and keep loving each other
Yeah.
no matter what. So I
Amen.
will see you